series on business communication. Now today we are going to discuss active listening in business communication. Now listening is important in communication, but before discussing listening, let's see what communication is. Now communication is a force that helps in decision making for the organization. It is a kind of a function which is very important for the organization because it coordinates the activities in the organization and it fulfills the basic relatedness and the connectivity of the people. Now let's see this in model. You have the sender, receiver, from where the message is encoded. The receiver receives the message which is decoded and it again comes back to the sender. In between you could have the noise or a kind of a barrier which genuinely reduces the process of listening. If listening is not proper or it is not effective in the organization, it would lead to a lot of misunderstandings, low morale of employees, a kind of a dissatisfaction, dissatisfied customers, and it could also cause serious problems related to unhappy feelings in the organization. The trust level is reduced because you don't understand each other. Listening is not only giving attention to people, but it is a kind of a building empathy where you listen to the people in an emotional way also. You get connected people in a way by which you are related to their feelings, to their basic trust, whichever they are wanting or they want to be happy in their lives. So listening is important, though it seems to be very easy, but it is a kind of a very complex process because it requires a lot of concentration and a meditation to build up this habit. Generally you see people complaining that nobody listens to me and people are literally frustrated in their life, and maybe it can result into a kind of a fight or into a kind of a breakup of relationship. Most of the divorces in married life happens because husband and wife don't listen to each other. So the reason for unhappy relationship, for a kind of a unhappy existence of anything in the organization or in the private or personal life is because you don't listen to each other. Now let's not save our loving speeches, our loving words and a kind of encouraging words and inspiring words for people whom you don't say only. You have to tell people that how much you respect them, and then you have to listen to their feelings and understand them in such a way that you can relate to their emotional level also. It is basically related to your time, empathy, concentration and the power to be a kind of a person who has the relatedness and a connectivity need. Now listening is a power which makes people feel important. It makes feel people to get a better status in life. It gives a kind of a connectivity in the organization. Why it is important to listen? Now if you don't listen, it will result into a kind of a confusion and cohesiveness in the organization. You will not get results in the organization. Your objectives and goals will not be achieved. The power of expression of the people will be genuinely fatal if they know that they are not respected. So if you want that people express themselves, somebody has to listen. Somebody has to give the kind of importance which people need in their life. Now it is genuinely sad that people have a kind of a habit or a power of listening 4 times faster than their speaking abilities. The process is difficult because when you speak, your mind processes faster than the listening abilities. You could daydream, you could go to the other lands also, you could think about other people, but still you can listen. So genuinely when the processes interlap in your mind or when the communication is faster, then the process is interrupted and you have a bad listening habit because you don't understand the full aspect or the impact of the message, and then you are just superficially connected to people. But the active listening habit would involve a kind of a deep understanding in form of encouraging, restating what has been said, reflecting on one's behavior and then summarizing whatever he wanted to say. So if you could perform all these functions in your mind and you could build up an empathy, then the process of listening is successful. Otherwise, it would create a barrier between the sender and the receiver. Sometimes these barriers are created or ineffective listening happens because you are not connected to people. If you don't trust the speaker, or if you have a kind of a different perception or a belief or a value system or a different religion, or if the speaker is not able to understand or speak in your own language, then genuinely this barrier is created that people don't listen. aspect of listening through the Hurrier's model. This model discusses the components and the effectiveness of the listening process. Now, the first aspect is hearing. Hearing is just paying attention to whatever is being said. Then you come to understanding. Understanding involves a kind of a comprehensive process to take the messages in a better way. Remembering. Remembering is a kind of a process where you recall the message. Then is interpreting. Interpreting is a kind of a process where you give meaning to the messages. Then is evaluating. Evaluating is a process where you evaluate on the basis of the cost, benefit or the pros and cons of the messages, whether it is beneficial for you or it is not beneficial for you. And then is responding. If the things are beneficial to you and if they are giving you a kind of a weight or a kind of a status or importance, you would respond in a positive way. So, this is the total process. Now, sometimes the listening is genuinely not possible or it is ineffective because there is a kind of a information overload. Again, in this graph, we have shown you this the process of information overload. On the x-axis, we have plotted the time, and on the y-axis, we have plotted the information. Now, when the information is to the level where the employees can process this kind of aspect in their minds, it is taken in a better way. But if the message overload is there or if the information is more and it crosses this boundary, then this cannot be processed by the mind. Like if many people start speaking to you, a person A, B, C, and start saying everything to you, then you will not be in a mood to reply to any person because you are not able to listen to all people simultaneously. So this kind of information overload has to be controlled. Now, when you try to control the information overload, this is again by a process where you could allow to keep a gatekeeper. This gatekeeper will process the information. Either it will allow message A, B, C in a kind of a sequence, or it will allow only important messages or important people to come into your office and say their things in a systematic way. So, information overload could be removed by keeping gatekeepers, which would enhance the active listening process for the human beings. Now, when you talk about listening, active listening process is a kind of a process which needs strategies to be done in such a way that this process becomes successful and people do enhance their abilities to give attention to people. First strategy is sensing. Sensing is a kind of a strategy where a kind of the receiver or a person has to postpone the kind of evaluation. Now, see, suppose if a speaker is saying something and before he has said or before he has completed, you start overlapping your gestures and your belief in such a way that you start evaluating people. If your evaluations are immature, then you will not hear what he wants to say, or you try to avoid interpretations. Don't give your interpretations according to your own beliefs and perceptions. Evaluation. Now, evaluation is again a process where you have to empathize the kind of the speaker to whom you are related. You have to evaluate in such a way that you feel the importance what the speaker is saying. You don't have to evaluate the messages and the information according to your own convenience. Or it is responding. Now, responding should be in a way that you show interest in people, you react positively to the people, you clarify the messages, and you take the things in the kind of the statement or in a kind of a convenient way or in a harmonious way. If you want to fight or if you want to come into a conflict, obviously you will not be able to listen what the speaker wants to say. So, in this case, the basic strategy to enhance the active listening process is that you have to relate to people in a kind of a sustainable and a harmonious and a rhythmic way. This will foster positive kind of relationships between the people. Now, listening also increases when you have a kind of a persuasive communication. Persuasive communication comes from the experts. Experts do give you a kind of a counseling or a kind of a coaching or a kind of a positive message which builds up or fosters a kind of a relationship where the listening process is enhanced. Now, let's see the process of listening. It is a 5-step process of listening. First is you get a stimuli. Now, you attach a meaning to that stimuli. You store for the future reference. Then you separate the fact from the opinion and evaluate the quality of the evidences. You react. Once you have evaluated the message, you respond to it, whether it could be positive or it could be negative. If you are responding in a positive way, that means the communication has been successful and it has generally done the function for which it was communicated. But if the communication fails, that means the listening has been not proper, or listening has been not in the way in which the speaker wanted to say. Here the negotiation process fails because the speaker and the receiver both are not able to build an empathetic relationship. Now, listening generally is a kind of a habit, or it is a kind of a behavior which people do foster in their lives because some kind of negative aspects are associated with their personality. There are bad listening habits, like you genuinely are attached to bore topics which the speaker takes up and it puts the other person in a depressive stage, or the speaker's delivery is very poor, so in that way people will not listen to you. Or if you are always fighting, you are always in a kind of a conflicting position, or you are always arguing with people, then generally people will not give you a kind of respect and they will not listen even to your valuable judgments. And listening is also because the speaker's knowledge is not worthwhile. So the speaker has to be learned, he has to be of a kind of a genuinely of a status where he has a kind of a expertise over whatever subject he is saying. So this would enhance the listening process. People have to overcome the bad listening habits by concentration and by meditations. Now these genuinely the bad habits of listening which come to your life spoil the kind of progress or the relativeness or the kind of connectivity which you can build up with the society. When you enter the class, you get distracted. When you enter the organization, you get a kind of a process, or you enter into a misunderstanding kind of a relationship, or you are failing in your interview, or you are failing into a negotiation, you break up the deal. The basic reason is because you are not respecting people, you are not listening to them. So you have to overcome these barriers before you come to a kind of a successful relationship. Now, what could be the reasons why these processes happen and why you don't listen to people? First is, these barriers are shown in this diagram. First is, you have self-imposed barriers. Self-imposed barriers is that you believe in a certain belief and a perception. You have a kind of a domain where you say that you are always right. You don't want to change according to the people's need. You have your self-perception, and this basically binds to you. You are very much in a kind of a relationship where you don't want to allow other person to enter your life. Then it could be the selective barriers. Now, selective barriers are those barriers which you select. You select in terms of environment, or you feel a kind of a discomfort in your life, or you are depressed, or your mental state is not in a proper way where you could relate to the speaker. Suppose you are in a kind of a bad mood and your child has come and said something to you, even in a lovable way, you would just shout and just ignore him. So this is like you have selected a barrier where you don't want to listen even to the good things or to the lovable things or the affection which your child wants to show to you. So listening is a kind of a technical process which is far off, or it is more mature than hearing. So listening has to be active, whereas hearing is just passive, you don't respond. Listening is a kind of a deep-rooted emotional kind of a gesture which has to be taken to the mind. It is a kind of a process which is continuously happening in your mind. Basically, the types of listening which we are going to discuss are, first is content listening, then is critical listening, then is empathetic listening. Now, when you talk about content listening, in this the message and the context or the fact is important. Here you evaluate the message not on the basis of how it is said, but on the basis of content. Like, see, suppose you ask for a price of a product. Here the price in terms of figure is important. So you would basically concentrate only on the content. Then is critical listening. Critical listening is you are always criticizing people, you are finding out their limitations. So whatever even good things they want to show to you or they want to say, you will not respond to them. Empathetic listening is a kind of listening where you enter the shoes of the other person. You empathize their feelings, you empathize their needs, and then if you listen, you try to have a kind of emotional connectivity with that person, and then you build up a relationship. So this third kind of listening is very important, and if people are ready to empathize and if people are ready to connect, obviously the communication would happen and you will build up relationships in life. Now when you talk about levels of listening, you have a casual or a marginal level where you just don't give attention to people. Then it's attentive level. Attentive level is you start entering into a process where you start giving importance to people. And then it's active level. Active level is just getting related in terms of emotional connectivity to people. So these total levels have to be crossed before you come to a process where you involve your brain, your mind and your heart and soul into the total process of communication. And when you put your soul together, then only things happen in life. Then only empires are built up or the businesses start working. In terms of listening, there would be 4 levels of listening. First comes the non-listening level 1. The non-listener does not hear the speaker. He will not respond. Second level is the non-listener is usually considered as a kind of a social bore. He is generally like a person who wants to speak so much, and he will speak so much that people will find him a burden. He will be avoided in the society because people want people who would genuinely listen to them. Then is marginal listening level 1. Here the sounds and the words are given meaning, but you don't respond to these meanings. Marginal level 2. Here the listening is hazardous because the misunderstandings are possible because you're not emotionally getting related to people. Then it's evaluating listening. Evaluative listening level 1 is you are giving judgments at a very early stages before the speaker completes his total message. Evaluating listening 2. You tend to stay away from the speaker in an emotional way and you judge people according to your own perceptions. Now come to the active listening level 1. Here is undoubtedly and unquestionably you relate yourself to the speaker. You try to comprehend the powerful messages which the speaker wants to do. Active listening level 2 is the concentration of your thoughts to his level, what he wants to say. So you relate your thoughts to the speaker's thoughts level and you enter into the process of listening. Now these steps where we have taken the total process in terms of concentration, acknowledgement, research, exercise, emotional control, sense the non-verbals and structure it. See, once when you concentrate is you relate your thoughts to the speaker's thoughts. Then you acknowledge. Acknowledge is you say that you want to believe in him and you respect him. So acknowledging could be like nodding your head, or it could be like giving a kind of a excitement or a kind of a signal which shows the interest that the speaker is genuinely a nice person. So this will encourage the speaker and your listening habit would enhance. Then do a research. Research is try to analyze the facts in a sequence. Whatever he has said in the introduction, what is in the content, what is the conclusion. You have to rehearse that and build up a kind of a research plan in your mind that what was the basic aspect of whatever content has been given to you. Then exercise the emotional control. Try not to be a person who enters into arguments or try not to be a person who enters into fight. Try to be a normal person who would genuinely acknowledge each and every reasonable aspect of the speaker. Then sense the non-verbals. Non-verbals would be, there are few things which words cannot cover. These are the non-verbals and the body language as the gestures and the kinds of emotional aspects which the speaker wants to give but you are not able to take it. So build up that ability that you relate to the level where people want to be understood in terms of the emotional aspects also. Then structure. Structure is like giving a shape to whatever the message or the speech has come from the speaker. You shape it according to his perception, not according to your own perception. Now when you start doing this process of listening, there are some basic guidelines which would make you an effective listener. First is control the environment, control the physical environment. Environment would be like there should be no sound or there should be no noise. If the environment is calm and peaceful, you would genuinely concentrate on whatever is being said. After the environment, you have to control the kind of a process in such a way that the basic technical aspects of the listening process are completed. Here you are going to solve the problems which are associated to your life. Maybe you are in a negative state. Try to overcome the state by genuinely building a positive outlook, or you should be spontaneous to that process in such a way that you relate to the people, or you don't evaluate people in such a way that whatever they want to say, you don't allow them to say, and build a kind of empathy. And don't have a kind of a superiority complex. If you have this complexes, you will never listen to people. Try to build up a kind of a relationship which is based on equal forums. If there is equality, if there is a kind of a certainty, and if there is a kind of a importance given to each other in form of respect, definitely listening will happen. Now, when you have to involve into a kind of listening process, you have to be mentally alert also. Then only you would overcome the psychological barriers. Now let's see the psychological barriers which hinder the listening process. We have shown in this diagram. First is the subject matter. Now the subject matter, whatever the speaker wants to say, you have feelings about the subject matter, and then you have the feelings about each other. See, subject matter would be like what you believe, what you have an opinion, or whatever research you have done. So that subject matter has to relate to your knowledge level. If it is higher than your knowledge level, genuinely you will not pay attention because you don't understand. But if you have knowledge level to a certain level, and if the speaker is giving you a knowledge level which is below your level, then also you will not pay attention because you already know it, and you will not respect the kind of intelligence of the speaker. Now comes the feelings of each other. Each other is the speaker and the receiver. Both have to trust each other. If the trust is lost, you will not listen because you are genuinely not liking the person to whom you are connecting or you are communicating. Here a kind of relationship has to be built up in the mind that you want to listen to the person, then only you would get involved into a kind of concentrated process. Now basically listening also is difficult. Again, I have shown you this in this model. This is a shared and a semantic code model where we have shown you 6 circles. This is a kind of a semantic barrier which happens between the speaker and the receiver, which hinders the listening process. First is you have your my semantic code, which is shown by these 2 circles. This is my world and my opinion world. This is other semantic code is your semantic code. This is your world and your world of opinion. So unless and until these codes do not match or do not come into a kind of a rhythm, the listening process is genuinely distorted, or even if you are listening is you are not emotionally connected with the people. So the communication is between my world of opinion to your world of opinion. So this bridge has to be built up so that the total process of communication is completed. When you talk about the listening habits, you have to build up a kind of environment which I have already said, but you have to be also alert and you have to be mentally prepared. And it's not being mentally prepared in terms of attention, but you have to be emotionally matured also. You must have a capacity to judge people. You must provide feedback which is genuinely should be positive, and you must respond. Even if you are responding in a negative way, it should be in a respectful way so that you can convey the meaning to the person. Now, why it is happening that people do want to be listened, or why it is you don't want to listen? First is listening is important because it is the transfer of key concepts and the ideas which you have to take up in form of facts. Then you must be able to distinguish between the experience and the argument, distinguish between an example and idea, and distinguish between fact and principles. Try to get involved actively. When you are listening, the habits could be analyze the key points, what the speaker is saying. Look to the unspoken messages. Keep an open-minded. It means that like you should not be conservative. You must have a kind of a broad outlook. You must have a modern outlook so that you generally anticipate the feelings of people in a positive way. Then keep asking questions to the people. This would genuinely enhance and encourage the speaker. Then reserve judgments. Don't give judgments to the people. This will spoil the state and you will enter into a kind of a conflict. Take meaningful notes and then interrupt only where it is necessary. So if you follow these rules, the speaker will be respected. Whatever he wants to say, you would understand. Now, it is a kind of a hard work where you need a kind of a judgment in terms of the speaker's ability to relate to your level. So you have to build up a kind of a action plan where you have to match up your speed difference of your judgmental ability to the speaker's ability. Now, bad listening also happens because genuinely it is your speaking ability is very fast. See, we speak at least 135 to 175 words per minute, but a speaker's ability of speaking words is less, but whereas the receiver's ability to listen and to take up words is 400 to 500 words per minute. So there is difference in these kinds of the level. So you are giving only 175 words and here the processing ability is of 500 words. So the time which is left between the processing ability will be filled up by a kind of a dream or a vision or a kind of a traveling to some other area, or you would reach up other destination. So the analyzing in between the process happens in the mind, where you start taking up those aspects also. Your analysis starts happening in the mind. You could be somewhere, but the where you are stopping this process in such a way that you relate to that speed level, the process would be successful. Now bad listening habit also happens because you have a lack of training. You have not genuinely trained yourself so that you should be a good listener. It requires a lot of kind of a concentration and a kind of a built up habit. It's a training which you attuned your body to that process, and typically it is a kind of a biological process that people have less listening habits. Now let's see to these facts. The typical employee's listening effectiveness is only 25%. See, if you are giving 100%, nobody is going to listen your 100%. They are only taking 25%. Now 3/4 of everything that every employee is hearing is distorted quickly. The normal listener is likely to understand only about 50% of the conversation. After 48 hours, it drops to 25%. This means that the normal forgetting of a discussion is very high. So it is a kind of a biological process that we are not able to retain whatever has been said in our life. We listen to so many lectures, so you are not able to understand the 100%. But whatever 20% your biological senses are interpreting those facts, you have to remember by a good listening habits. If you have good listening habits, it will make your life easy. It will improve relationships. It will improve trust levels, and it will also improve a kind of a life habit which genuinely builds up a kind of a relationship where there are few misunderstandings, few conflicts, and less of fights. So it is better you understand people and live life peacefully. Now when you try to work out with the non-verbal aspects, you would be surprised to see that 7% of the message is genuinely given by the verbal aspects. It is the 93% of the messages which come to the people are through the non-verbal aspects. When you build up the structure is important because you index it, you give a sequence, you try to compare what you wanted and what has been said. So if your knowledge level is at a certain level and you get more than that, the respect feelings and the trust feelings are built up. So this total model of getting into a process of listening is important.